Ellie mains. I have finally decided that I will address the horror in which you live your daily lives in Guild Wars 2. It's time to talk about Elementalist, right? Look at this. I mean, just look at this graph. Look at it. From the highest of highs, 2000, it was even better than this. Back in the day, like, the only DPS you would play was Ellie. Ellie used to be the king, the overlord, the god of PvE. Every group would be 4 DPS Tempests. All right, then it was a zillion staff Arcane Weavers. And look at where we are now. Catalyst, 0.75%. Weaver, 0.3%. And Tempest, 1%. Hey, look, Tempest got better. Look, Tempest, 0.37%. Look, we got up to 1% now. Oh, yeah. That's good. We're defining the meta over here. So, what's going on here? Why do people not play Ellie? It's a great question. It's a great question. And ultimately, this is why. It's because Elementalist does not function very well in pug play. That is the underlining factor here. Elementalist, in its current state, is only truly effective in more try-hard gameplay, or if you're a very, very good player. A great example of this, and I'd encourage you to go and watch this, is that when Mela plays Catalyst, he will go in and he will be top DPS. In pugs. Catalyst isn't bad. It never was. But why didn't people play it? People didn't play it because it's hard. And it's hard to get value out of. Even though if you played really well, it actually was better than basically everything, and you'll outperform people, people still didn't play it. Same thing with builds like Condi Weaver. Condi Weaver, back in the day, it's still a thing, of course. It's actually a very strong build. A very strong build. It has a huge, colossal benchmark. But why don't people play it? It's because either you have to be in a very organized group, you have to be very good at the game to play it, and only then will you get value out of it. Now, here's the important distinction, okay? Was Elementalist, is Elementalist bad? No. And it hasn't been. In fact, Elementalist will top DPS charts, and historically has top DPS charts. But this is where people get a bit confused. Play rate is not the same as strength. You can have a really strong build that has a very low play rate. I think case in point will actually be in this sort of region here with Tempest over the last year. Tempest in raids before EOD was excellent. A genuinely amazing build. Incredible healing, far better than Druid, incredible boon support. But it didn't really see play. The reason for that, it was slightly more inconvenient to build a group around, and it didn't have offensive buffs. Those are actually kind of... The offensive buffs thing was kind of a bad reason. In general, Tempest probably worked out to a DPS increase for most groups, simply because it would improve their boon uptime, therefore leading to a damage increase over a Druid, despite the offensive buffs. However, people didn't play it because it was just slightly more effort to get value out of. And this is the actual thing that truly defines the metagame. And this is the important thing. Elementalist doesn't see play because it's hard to get value out of. It is less convenient to play. Not that it's bad, right? And this is super important. Elementalist is not bad. Well, honestly, it kind of might be a little bit bad now. But before it got a bit of a hammer in the last patch, it wasn't bad. Okay? Weaver was fine. Catalyst is playable for sure, right? Definitely, you can get top DPS, right? Now, ArenaNet did hit it with a bit of a hammer, and unsurprisingly, it's a bit Some of the design on it is very questionable too. But it's super important to understand this distinction and understand what's really going on here. So, the problem we actually want to solve is we want to make it easier to get value out of Elementalist. We don't need to make it better as such. We need to make it easier to get value. Now, I don't think we should remove the high skill cap. And in a way, you can't, right? You have lots of buttons. Ellie's always going to have loads of skills. Here I am on my Tempest, just pressing all my... Look at all this stuff. Look at all these skills. This is crazy, right? I've got 4 achievements that all do things because of traits, and I've got 5 skills each, and my utility skill changes based on what achievement I'm in. Whoa, this is crazy. What a crazy build. And I've got overloads too. Wow. What an intense build. And of course, a lot of Elementalist builds might also have conjure weapons that increase the complexity. You have dual skills. There's a lot going on there. So even though these builds are good, and actually, by the way, if anyone doubts Heal Tempest being good, I'd very much encourage you to watch Quantify's recent kill of Harvest Temple Challenge Mode. Fennec, a big, staunch Ellie main, actually cleared by playing Tempest. So is Tempest bad? Absolutely not. If you can clear Harvest Temple Challenge Mode with Tempest, then oh no, that is not a bad build. That is a good build if you can do that. And again, they did this, right? So it's a good build. And funny enough, this is the build that I really like for Tempest right now, actually, funny enough. See it soon on hardstuck.gg. Go ahead and check it out. But I think the really important thing is to look at the gaps. Why is it that Tempest is less convenient than Mechanist? Well, it's because boon access and trade-offs. And this is not, this applies a lot to Elementalist, and I'm talking about Elementalist because I think Elementalist suffers from this, honestly, more than basically any other profession in the game. Trade-offs. On Mechanist, you make no trade-offs as a support. You have all of your utility skills basically free, right? You have all of your traits synergize perfectly, and there's no trade-off there, right? You know, you get all your barrier, all your alacrity, the traits give you boon abilities, there's no downside whatsoever. Now let's look at Tempest. Let's break this down. So, I want to give alacrity with Looted Singularity. Okay, well now I'm giving up a strong component of my sustain with Elemental Bastion now being sacked. So my auras don't heal anymore because of this, right? That's a trade-off. Mech doesn't have to make that trade-off. Let's imagine I want to give stability on Tempest. Well, to be frank, you can't really do that super well, but let's play ball. We're going to play Earth. And now we've got Rock Solid. And we've got some AoE stability. And, you could buff this trait. Honestly, I think they should buff this trait. We should buff this trait a lot and make this the stability source for Elementalist. But that wouldn't be good enough. And here's why. It wouldn't be good enough because Mech has no trade-off. You give stability, baseline. You want to cleanse Conzies on Ellie? Well, you're going to have to go Cleansing Water. Maybe you also have to go for the Fire trait line. So Smothering Auras also cleanses here as well. We've made a trade-off. A big trade-off to do this, right? Because now we don't have our Arcane trait line. We've given up our Revival power. We've given up boon duration, boon application across the board. It's just, in a lot of ways, funnily enough, by the way, guys, I would say that Elementalist is well designed. Yeah. Yeah, it's well designed. Because, you know what? You choose specializations to specialize. You pick a trait, and it changes your build. Whoa! Now, the problem is that this is applied unequally. Firebrand, the two really big outliers here are Firebrand and Mechanist. And what do they have in common? What do those things have in common? What they have in common is that they have the complete package with no trade-off. Again, on Firebrand, you have free utility skills that you can just use. You can get stability in there, no problemo. You can get Aegis in there, easy peasy, no problem, right? No trade-off. We have full healing, full boons, everything. And you can use the same trait lines. We're going to use Virtues every time. We're going to use Honor every time. We don't even need to, Radiance doesn't even exist anymore because we don't have Signature, right? And this is the core issue that Ellie fails. And I really want to stress this. This is so important. Ellie mains, I beg you, please listen to me. Just buffing it won't actually help. Just giving it more numbers won't help. This is actually a design issue that's going on with Elementalist, not even a balance issue. This build is good. It's a good build, right? To play Tempest. You could pair it with a Firebrand to get your stability as well, Quickness Firebrand, you could pair it with whatever to kind of fill out the rest of the boons. But in a way, that won't be good enough because you're still going to be behind in terms of design, right, compared to this. Same thing with, the heal firebrand, right? You're going to be behind on design because if I want to give stability, then oh no, we're in trouble. I have to sacrifice my entire build, right? NG, infinite Condi cleanse, baseline, elixir gun, and of course, medkit is an amazing cleanse too. That's for free. What about Tempest? Well, now we've got to give up some healing. Now we've got to give up maybe an entire trait line to get to fire, right? So we can have more cleanse, right? Stuff like that. Like, that's a serious issue. And this, to me, is the big question. How are we going to fix this? What is the actual solution here? And to be honest, I think this might be controversial, and I'm almost pained in saying this. In my opinion, the correct way to approach this is to make Ellie more like Mech and Firebrand rather than the other way around. Because that is technically bad design. However, I think it will be healthier for the game. So let's talk about player behavior. Slight intermission. Let's talk about player behavior. So players are always going to try to play the best possible answer, even if it isn't necessary. Even if it's not necessary, they'll do it anyway. So a great example of this was Druid and Tempest, right? So Druid was like perceived to be better than Tempest because it's slightly more convenient and has unique modifiers. Even though Tempest was arguably stronger, I'd say it was stronger actually. I'd say that Tempest was better than Druid. In pug groups anyway, for sure. So, in my opinion, just buffing it or making it good isn't good enough. You need to make it so that these builds function well in groups. Otherwise, that play rate will never go up. If you want to... I guess it depends on our goal. If we want to make Ellie balanced, then honestly, you don't really have to do that much. I'd probably just make some of the utility skills way stronger, bring them up to date. I'd buff weapon skills. I'd, in general, probably look at boon support across the board to give it a bit more boon variety. But in general, Ellie isn't bad as such. This is the misconception that I'm attacking it. Ellie isn't bad. Right? And again, numbers will tell you this. You can look at high-performing players like Mela do extremely well with it, right? You can watch Fennec play Tempest on Harvest Temple CM and clear it. Ellie isn't bad. Oh, no. Oh, no. What it is inconvenient, right? That is the problem. And the play rate will never go up unless it becomes convenient. Right? And if you don't agree with my solution, that's completely fair, by the way. I'm just trying to make sure that everyone's on the same page with identifying the problem, right? With this. It's awkward to fit Ellie into groups. It's awkward to play Ellie. It just is because of the way the class plays out. And that's why I'm trying to emphasize this is a design issue, not so much a balance issue in this regard. Super important to emphasize that. I will say that one thing, another area of this inequality is the way utility skills are, and certainly weapon skills. I would say Ellie has some of the more out-of-date weapon skills for sure. I mean, look at Cone of Cold. Look at that ability. 1.4k heal? Cone? What the hell? I think we can do a little bit better than that. Right? And again, this is a really weird design thing, by the way, gamers. In a way, Ellie skills have to be weaker because you have more of them. So each skill isn't going to be like a mega tooltip because you have loads of buttons, right? You can't have every skill be an omega tooltip, otherwise you just made an abomination of balance, right? It's like super OP, right? But I think that some of these things could definitely use a bit of an update. I think utility skills could definitely use an update as well. I think they could look into conjures. Maybe you can have Aegis on Earthshield, right? Maybe you can have, I don't know, like loads of crazy stuff like that, like you could throw on some of these things. Because in general, one thing that makes a profession really strong is the strength of its utility skills. Guardian and Engineer have really good utility skills, such as Stand Your Ground, Advance, right? The Elite Mantra, Quickness Mantra. On Engineer, you have Barrier Signet, Shift Signet, Elixir Gun, Mortar Kit, right? Really good utility skills. I think they definitely need a tune-up. I'd say Tempest utilities definitely need a bit of a tune-up there to make them a little bit better. But again, I do want to, again, say this. I'm going to repeat myself because I want to make sure people get this. Even if you do all of that, the thing that's really holding Elementalist back is the inconvenience with which it is played. And I think we can actually look at historical evidence here. Do you know why Staff Weaver and Tempest were so good back in the day? It's because they were incredibly convenient. One, other options were significantly weaker, by the way. There was actually a time when Fresh Air Staff was basically the only good DPS build. That's not a joke, by the way. Back in Heart of Thorns, you would play 4 Fresh Air Staff Weavers on literally every boss. You'd play double Chrono, right? Double Warrior, double Druid, 4 Ellies on every boss, because that was just unbeatable, right? But why? Why was that unbeatable? Well, Starfweaver was amazing because you had Arcane, you had the Res trait, you had Geyser, you had loads of support baked into it, right, with all this stuff. You were surprisingly tanky, actually, because you had a good heal skill, too. Tempest, same thing. You were tanky. You had Wash the Pain Away, Broken Skill. You could do Water Overload. You could do Earth Overload, right? All these things were really, really good, actually. And I would like to see some of that come back. That is going to be the next part of what I'm going to talk about here. What can we actually do? What would make Ellie strong? Well, again, why is Firebrand strong? DPS Firebrand or Quickness Firebrand? Simple. Because it has incredible baseline utility. And actually, I'm going to, Ellie mains, I'm going to call you guys out here. In my opinion, you absolutely dug your own grave here. You're like, I want Glass Cannon. I want a Glass Cannon, ArenaNet. Yeah, and ArenaNet gave it to you, right? And it turns out Glass Cannons suck in Guild Wars 2. They're garbage. What actually works really well is hybrid builds. Builds that have damage and support. And, okay, like loads of useful stuff that you can do in the game. Stuff like Firebrand, Hollowsmith, Dragon Hunter, Scourge, right? These are the builds that do really well, right? This is what happens in this regard, actually. It is a glass cannon. You are wrong. Catalyst was an absolute nuclear weapon, and so was Conde Weaver. Right? This is a fact. You can go and look at the numbers. Just go and look at the numbers. It's entirely up to you. You can't disagree. You're disagreeing with numbers if you disagree with that. And that's fine. You can do that. But it's not going to work out well for you. Okay? What needs to happen, in my opinion, is clear, defined roles. Okay? In specializations, in PvE for Elementalist. Specifically, I think they should probably aim to make Catalyst the kind of pug Ellie build alongside Tempest. I think Weaver should actually be reserved to basically being a glass cannon build. I think Weaver should just go full out damage. I think Tempest should be kind of like a defensive support or hybrid damage dealer. So basically heal Tempest or something like a DPS Conde Tempest where you apply boons, alacrity and stuff, and you're still doing damage at the same time, but you're still very defensive. You have some defensive support. And then I think Catalyst should be the offensive support. So if you kind of look at Catalyst right now, there's actually some pretty cool stuff here, right? So Catalyst actually has loads of boon access. If we look at Spectacular Sphere, we look at Sphere Specialist, all this kind of stuff, there's a lot of really good stuff here, in my opinion. I think they should just really lean into this. Make it so you can do a really good damage quickness build that applies loads of might, loads of vigor. Resistance, that's pretty cool. You throw that in there as well. You're giving fury. You're giving protection at the same time. I think that would actually be a build that would absolutely see play. Absolutely see a huge amount of play. If Boon Catalyst was amazing. Because bear in mind, I'll actually, and look, if you don't believe me, I will absolutely go ahead and bring up one of the builds that I love the most. And by the way, actually, a lot of high-level players love, by the way. This is not just me, like, having a fetish for a bad build. Let's talk about Boon Herald. This build actually might have been the most underrated and underplayed build of all time. I think I can say that without exaggeration. I'm not joking, by the way. This build was so strong. It did get deleted a bit. Poor Herald. Although it's kind of back. It's back now, actually, because of the quickness. Actually quite good, by the way. But yeah, it took a bit of a beating with the EOD 5-target change. But when this was 10-target, this build was a monster. It was such a subtle, powerful carry. And this is where I think Catalyst could get in. right? This is where Catalyst could come into play, right? As this melee bruiser, utilize the damage reduction from having the spinny orbs about the place, right? You know, have like maybe give it some more AoE healing or AoE barrier on hammer, right? Make its utility skills lean into support a bit more and just give it more damage so that when you take the boon traits, you don't need as much boon duration, so you can still do more damage. To give the base duration a little bit higher on some of these boons, so you can have this really aggressive boon support. That would 100% see play, in my opinion. In the same way that Boon Herald, look, I didn't have time to make everyone play Boon Herald, by the way. Look, do you know how much I love this build, guys? I soloed the Mushroom Queen, sorry. On my, this is my gameplay. Soloing Mushroom Queen. That's how much I love this build. Okay? Good build. And I soloed the Frog as well. And the Chak. I soloed all the hero points. Look. Mushroom down. Where's the Frog? Yeah, Chak soloed. Chak dealt with. Frog also solo. That was bad by me, but it's okay. We ignore that. Okay? That's what I'm talking about. Frog is down. Boom. Oh, look at that burst. Look at that. Look at that output. And I think that's where Ellie could really get in there. So basically, I don't want to go into like detail on all of my balance ideas for Catalyst, but I do really want to underline that I think it's important that we as Elementalist enjoyers really understand what we want and what would actually fix the problem. I actually love Ellie. I am always going to be a Tempest fan. Always. I love Heal Tempest. Played it in PvP, played it in World vs. World, play it in PvE. Loved that build, particularly when it was at its best. Hell, I got a sub 2 hour clear with Heal Tempest, right? I really enjoy Elements. It's the first profession I ever played. I want this to be good. Right now, though, the reason I don't find it attractive is the exact same reason why it doesn't see play in raids, because it is low value. And honestly, it doesn't even matter how much damage you give it, it will still be relatively low value. Players will learn and get good at Elementalist and do good damage on it. I believe that anyone can do that. But even if you do really good damage on Catalyst, you're still low value. Because at the end of the day, you're competing with a lot of hybrid builds that do slightly less damage than you, but have infinitely more utility, right? And I think that is where the focus should be, is bringing Elementalist into the light, up to the sun, right? And give it way more boon power, give it more support, you know? Let's, you know, look at Hammer. I'll list off maybe a few changes here that we can talk about. Like, for example, why not make it so the barrier on Immutable Stone is 5 targets in PvE? So you get a block, boom. AoE 3k barrier. That's pretty sick. What if we go to water? What if we made Crashing Font AoE healing? Okay. That would be pretty cool. That might be actually pretty overpowered, actually, I'm not gonna lie. But you know what? I don't mind overbuffing it. Let's overbuff it a bit. Let's make it better. Let's make it better than it should be. I think overbuffing is good. Overbuff it, then tune it down, right? Why don't we make it so that maybe the water orb heals the allies 50%. Yeah, something like that. Maybe this heals allies it passes through. So you have like a little mini ticking heal. Like while you've got this out. A little ticking heal. A bit like the Druid Staff too, right? And this heals people it touches. Maybe, this would be OP maybe. Maybe the Earth one gives a little bit of barrier. Right? Or something like that. A little bit of ticking barrier. Those are the things that makes builds good. Right? It's not about damage. Right? If you had a bit more utility with some solid DPS, that is when you're going to see Catalyst. I think they could also modify the way this trait works. I would just say they should just make elemental empowerment just better. Make it a little bit better, I'd say, just in general. You could even give it AoE stability. You know, maybe make it like, I don't know how you would change this trait without it becoming really crazy, but maybe you could make Staunch Auras give AoE stability. So your Catalyst is now an area stability provider, much like Firebrand. You can have a trade-off there. You trade off this elemental empowerment a little bit, but you're still delivering that value. Okay, across the board there as well. Maybe shuffle the traits around to make that kind of make sense, make that work. All that kind of stuff. Right? Make the Firehawk give 5% strike damage. No, we're not doing that again. Okay, we're not going down that road again, gamers. That's not a good idea. That's not the big brain play whatsoever. Add some quality of life to this stuff. Just make some of these abilities a little bit better. And I think in general, make it easier to play too. Make the auto attack stronger and nerf down the other abilities a bit. Make the second skill better and like some of the more utility oriented skills better as well. I think another thing that will be really good, and this actually might be a very unpopular opinion with Ellie mains, but I think they should make it so that not all of these skills are DPS increases. Maybe it shouldn't be a DPS increase to use this skill, Ground Pound. Right? I'm not even sure if it is. I haven't played Catalyst for a while. But maybe make it so that's something that you only use if you want to immobilize stuff. Right? That would be really cool in my opinion. You know, let's make it so that all of our utility, you only use it for utility. And make the other stuff a bit better. Right? Weaver can be that balls out, pure, all in, every ability you do is damage. But if you want to see high play rates, I think Catalyst has got to budge a little bit. I also think looking at core Elementalist utilities would be really good. If I look at these abilities here, what can I take that can help my team? How can I help my team with my abilities? You could say Conjures, maybe a little bit. And I guess that's right. But most of these skills are incredibly selfish, right? You know, they just do more damage, or they'll stun break me or protect me in some way. I think that you could maybe do this with some of the augments, actually. Make the augments a bit more team support oriented. Maybe even have a trait that makes them AoE somehow. Some kind of like really weird stuff across the board there as well. So that could be something that could be looked at as well for elements. But again, I'm not here to talk about specifics. I kind of want to talk about design during this this little Elementalist. It's all about the design, gamers. It's about the design, my friends, is what we want to talk about here. But I think that's about all I've got to say, right? That's about all I've got to say about Elementalist. Specialize the specializations, probably give them some more flexibility, make them more convenient to fit into standard groups, either make the trade-offs really strong so it's worth it, or apply a trade-off philosophy to other elite specs to kind of even out this design inequality, this design unevenness that we see in a lot of the current meta and like meta-defining elite specializations. But most importantly, understand the problem. Understand the issue. It is not about making Elementalist do more damage than anything else, because that will not fix the problem. I am sorry, it won't. I know a lot of people think it will, but it won't fix it. Okay? The only thing that will fix it is making it function in groups well. Simple as that. Because again, you might say, oh, actually, yeah, quick thing here before we kind of round out. You might say, oh, but Teapot, back when Weaver was top DPS, everybody played it. Yeah. Do you know why it was so strong, though? Because Weaver had top damage and top utility. Arcane Weaver, disgusting build, right? You have access to all of the utility of staff, 1200 range, everything's AoE, your top DPS, you have a revive trait, right? At the same time. Insane. And you have arcane, so you constantly apply boons, right? You have to, swapping around in earth and fire, you're giving prot uptime at the same time, swiftness uptime as well. Very strong. That was when prot was a bit harder to come by as well, by the way, and res utility was a lot harder to come by. And Tempest was even worse. Fresh Air Tempest is genuinely one of the most disgusting builds of all time. Massive AoE in melee and ranged, godlike utility with water overload, earth overload, staff healing, staff cleanse, wash the pain away, rebound, and your top DPS by miles. That build was disgusting. And I know, I played it. Go and watch my old videos. Oh yeah, I was all over that. But to be clear, and I actually want to be clear here, you could honestly put old Starweaver into the game now, and I think it will be fine. I'd be okay with doing that, by the way. In fact, maybe they should. Maybe they should just bring Starweaver back, literally the old build with Arcane, and make that build insane. Make it do like 37k, 35k, 36k, 37k DPS. Well, 35k probably would be good now because of everything got nerfed a fair bit, right? Because of all the unique mods going. The reason for that is because, again, the game has been power crept really hard. Right, the game has been power crept very aggressively since Starweaver, so that build was absolutely broken back then, whereas now, it would probably be like, oh yeah, this is a good build, but it wouldn't exactly be broken. I think Tempest arguably would be broken, actually. If you brought back that exact build, and it was doing, like, 38k DPS, or, like a top DPS Fresh Air Staff Tempest, that would be arguably broken. honestly. That would be pretty insane. It would. But who knows? You could probably make it work. You can make it work. Hell yeah. But that's it. That, my friends, is my Elementalist manifesto. There you go. We're not adding longbow. It's too late for that. You're not getting longbow. The Elementalist manifesto has been completed. I don't know why everything is a manifesto now. But those are the issues that I end up seeing with elementals in general, and how I would identify those problems, and I think the steps that need to be taken to fix them. Hopefully you enjoyed those. Let me know what you think, by the way, in the comments. You're on YouTube right now watching this. Let me know what you think. I don't think I missed anything. I'm gonna go like, forgot to mention that. Oopsie. But hopefully I didn't do that. I think I covered all the broad important points anyway, in my opinion. And some of the things that I would go about doing it, and the direction I would try and push Elementalist to get it back in here, get some class representation, and having a good time and blasting hardcore. Well, yeah, that's what we need. That is what we need for Elementalist. And for Catalyst, Weaver, and Tempest. And some of the issues that is faced. But that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. Leave some comments. And remember, subscribe and watch all my other videos. But that's it. Take it easy, my friends. See you later.